Not only after, but we take it as we're putting the parts on, all done to above industry standards. So I'm proud of our body shop too. Don't forget our parts department. So you don't have to need parts, performance parts, or just parts if you're a weekend mechanic.
Woody Anderson Ford, located at the corner of Jordan and Sparkman, as well as Hughes Road and Madison. You can also check out the great deals at WoodyAndersonFord.com.
Do you hear my computer career ads and think, I don't know anything about computers?
app you can bank anytime, anywhere, making Capital One an even easier decision. That's bank wallet.
different shuttles for different folks. You know, they had our great sponsor, McCurry Motors. They do a great job. They were shuttling the volunteers, and kudos to all those folks who volunteered to help run the tournament, the caddies, the golfers, and things of that nature. And then, you know, and then of course, you would ride the regular shuttle as well, and that's what we were talking about, the Sandra Moon / Grissom. So I just thought the whole thing was well run. You know, I know we had some fun with it. We called it Falcon Crest, and that's what it felt like. But it was just, I thought, you know, I had a really good experience, and it's hopefully going to be a big drawing card for the city of Huntsville, as you talked about, going forward due to this 5-year deal.
All right, so that is the golf. 256-576-4977. If you were up there this weekend and want to talk about it, go ahead and give us a call, 256-576-4977. That is the big local one. We'll talk high school soccer as well, because the field is set for this coming up state soccer tournament as well. So that's the next big event that's going on here in the Rocket City, as the John Hunt soccer fields will be full of action coming up this week. High school baseball rolled on over the weekend as well, so we got scores to get through that, because all of the second round and first round in Class 7A games, they're all complete as well. So a lot of good stuff going on here locally.
And we're even going to have a local 7A series. You know, it's going to be out in the shoals.
Yes.
But basically, Florence and 7A is going to take on Sparkman. The two home series won, and unfortunately, we didn't have anyone victorious on the road in 7A. As Grissom battled their tails off and led for much of Game 1 before falling 3-2, and I believe they fell in Game 2. Was it 6-3?
Yes,
I believe so. They fall 2 games to none to Jeff Malden and Hewitt Trussville, and then Bob Jones fell to Hoover and got swept in that series as well. But Bob Jones ending the season 26-20. Under Coach Jared Smith, so they had another good year. But again, Adam Mosley, former Grissom coach, tough program over there at Hoover, so they march on. But certainly, I think the winner of that Florence Sparkman series would get the winner of Hoover and of course, of Hewitt Trussville. So we will have a North Alabama squad in the semifinals.
All right, so we'll talk more high school baseball as the show kind of rolls along. But really, and it's something that we talked about from the top of the show, Cleveland had all eyes on them this past weekend. As Roger Goodell said on Friday when he kicked off, actually, I believe it was Saturday when he kicked off round 2, he talked about how that, before we get to the NFL draft, do want to say congratulations to Alabama A&M because they do win the SWAC championship over the weekend. The Bulldogs go down and they get it done over Arkansas, Pine Bluff, I believe. And so that means now, if you looked at it in the state of Alabama this past season, I know there's division. I know there was maybe some, I'm probably going to leave someone out, but Alabama won the SEC. UAB won Conference USA. Jacksonville State won the Ohio Valley Conference, and Alabama A&M won the SWAC Conference. So that is your football for the state of Alabama. We are the state of conference champions.
Yes, there's no doubt. Connell Maynard and the staff, congratulations to them. Akil Glass, what a great year. He's going to come back for the fall for his senior season, so he will be returning. A lot of expectations this fall for Alabama A&M, and it was a difficult year for them. They didn't get a chance to play a home game, which you felt for them not being able to bring anybody on campus, but they persevered. They got it done. They won 2 games in Jackson over Jackson State during the regular season, and that's where the SWAC championship game was relocated. And as you said, very impressive win over Arkansas Pine Bluff. Unfortunately for Coach Gross and the Gamecocks, their season ends at home in the second round against Delaware, 29-14, I believe was the final in that game, as Jacksonville State's run in the FCS playoffs comes to a close.
All right, so now let's turn our attention to the NFL draft in Cleveland. Roger Goodell saying on Saturday that it was the most attended sporting event since the pandemic. And if you watched it, there were oodles and oodles of people, over 100,000 people on hand for that NFL draft on the
All
first
3
2
days, man.
Yeah. So what a beautiful sight. And the SEC flexed its muscles once again. Alabama flexed its muscles. The SEC had 65 players drafted in the NFL draft. Every SEC school, all 14 schools, had at least one NFL draft pick.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it just shows you the strength of the league, no doubt about it. I know it was a year that was different, certainly, but certainly the SEC still dominant, flexing their muscles. And, it was amazing to watch. Alabama tied the Hurricanes record. We talked about that, 6 first-round draft choices. Then they had to go really early in round 2. I believe they had 8 of the top 38. Landon Dickerson and Christian Barmore go back-to-back to the Eagles and to the New England Patriots, who traded up to get Christian Barmore. So, obviously, Bill Belichick doing a lot of homework with Nick Saban to draft both Mac Jones, who's going to be their quarterback of the future. We'll see what the leash of Cam Newton, so to speak. I think he's going into camp, into the season, as the number 1 quarterback. But certainly when you invest in a Mac Jones with a top 15 pick, I think you definitely believe that within a year he's going to be your guy. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly that comes to fruition and how Mac kind of performs in training camp. But certainly I think I thought it was interesting. There was a clip on Twitter that was released during the draft, Scott, where the hug part with they vaccinated Goodell, so he's hugging everybody. And he hugs Mac Jones, and Mac leans in and whispers, and, of course, the microphones did catch it. He goes, "Don't tell anybody, but this is exactly how I wanted it to work out." So he wanted to be a Patriot, and play for Bill Belichick. I think it's a really good fit for Mac, and a lot of that is how you succeed as a quarterback. I mean, some of it is out of your control. You need to go to a good organization that's going to surround you with players and a coaching staff that knows how to utilize your skills. Certainly, I think Bill Belichick and his staff know how to do that. I wasn't a big fan of the Trey Lance situation because he may end up being a great player, even the best of the bunch, but I think there's a lot of questions about it. And now we're watching ESPN this morning here live at Bill Penny, and they're already proclaiming that Justin Fields will save the job of Matt Nagy and the Bears general manager. We'll see about that, as they had Justin Fields drop to 11th, where they traded up from 20 to end up snagging Justin Fields.
So you mentioned Bill Belichick, and you mentioned him taking Christian Barmore. Two notes there. Christian Barmore becomes the 12th player drafted by Bill Belichick from Nick Saban, from a Nick Saban college team. That could be either from Michigan State. Well, I don't know if it would be from Michigan State, because I don't think Bill Belichick was a head coach yet when Nick Saban was at Michigan State, but for sure LSU and Alabama. He comes the 12th player drafted from a Nick Saban team. That is the most by any such head coach combo in the common draft era. Alabama's 8 players taken in the second or by the first 2 rounds. That is the most from a single school in the common draft era since 1967. It does break the record of 6 other teams that had 7 players taken in the first 2 rounds. 2020 Alabama, 2020 LSU, 2017 Alabama, 2016 Ohio State, 2008 USC, and 2000 Tennessee.
And how ironic would this be, Scott? I'm looking at headlines, and Bruce Feldman is connected as anyone. You know what they do? They already start the 2022 draft.
Right.
And
come on now.
And no, but this is crazy. This is amazing. Oh, my Lord. Can you believe it? He said the quarterback to watch going into next year early now.
JT Daniels.
No, that's surprising, of course, because Georgia fans already have him winning the Heisman Trophy and winning the national championship that's eluded them for 40 years. 40, Scott. That's a long time.
Knicks?
Yeah. Well, no.
Okay. Who is it?
Even worse. If you're an Auburn fan, you're going to be sticking your head in the toilet. Malik Willis. Liberty.
Over at Liberty.
Oh.
Oh, boy. Boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. What do we call Liberty? Because, I mean, this Hugh Freeze is, I mean, man.
That would be something. That would mean that Hugh Freeze has probably finally moved on back into the Power Five.
Would it be any worse than what Georgia fans had to watch with
Justin Fields? It would be even worse for Auburn fans. Even worse.
It'd be worse?
Because it's a two-pronged thing. They wanted Hugh Freeze, and he took their old quarterback, who Gus would not play. So Gus is off counting his money in no tax land in Orlando and putting, Twitter accounts on the back of people's jerseys. He's long gone, and he got his money. But the Auburn fans and the administration, I can't believe, would be real happy with that. That would just be further, confirmation that they needed to make a change.
That would sting, wouldn't it?
Well, I mean, because Malik Willis, everybody looked at him when he was signed out of Georgia as a guy that fit Gus's offense. A dual
There's a lot of people that came through that,
Now, I will say, and this is you could partially blame this on Gus, but it's also on the kid, because Malik admitted that he didn't study like he should have when he was at Auburn.
He wasn't mature enough.
He didn't prepare and things of that nature. And, of course, I think Gus and those guys should have, been on him a little bit, coached him harder and whatnot. But, he went to Hugh Freeze. And there's one thing about Hugh Freeze. Well, there's two or three, actually. He's a train wreck off the field. He cheats, but he's also a really good coach. I mean, he's kind of like Rush Probst of the college ranks. I think there's a lot of similarities between the two guys.
A lot of undercurrent there.
Yeah, but still, that would be quite a storyline.
All right, let's get a break in, though.
Yeah.
We can talk more about all of this after we visit with Travis Reier coming up next.
You're listening to Talkin Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
They moved that accident on the ramp westbound 565 to Greenbrier Parkway off into a parking lot. It's a no injury. And we got one person going to the hospital after a shooting incident in the Home Depot parking lot, 10,000 block of South Parkway. The Somnodent from Dr. Sandman's an easy-to-use oral device. Insurance approved for sleep apnea and for snoring. 350-CARE or RandallSandlin.com. Captain Nick in the Jordan Lane Popeye Skywatch Traffic Center.
When you call most roofing companies, all you'll hear is, you need a new roof. Not when you call Fleming. At Fleming Roofing and Restoration, we're focused on your needs, whether it's an easy repair or a full roof replacement. Folks around here have trusted Fleming since 1965 for all their residential and commercial roofing needs. And as the area's storm damage experts, Fleming knows all the ins and outs of the insurance claims process. Log on FlemingHSV.com to schedule your free estimate today. Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We show up.
This is Wes Neighbors talking to Chris Haygood of Bob Wallace Appliance. Chris, what sets you apart from other appliance dealerships?
Wes, these appliances are going into the most used room in your house, your kitchen. The way we have these appliances displayed, it's easy for you to visualize how they'll look in your home. Wes, what sets us apart is the people. They're well trained. In fact, they live and breathe these appliances. And if you need service, you'll really appreciate our parts department.
Contact Bob Wallace Appliance at 256-533-2121. Hey, this is Justin with the Furniture Factory Bar and Grill. As we all get back to a new normal, I just wanted to let you know about the best bar and grill spot in North Alabama with the best entertainment as well. It is the Furniture Factory Bar and Grill. Every Monday night is steak night. Every Thursday night is bike night. Plus, we have the best food around, from the Mexican pasta to the best Cuban sandwich you could ever ask for. It's all at the Furniture Factory, located at the corner of Meridian and Pratt. Find us online, FurnitureFactoryBarGrill.com. If you need a car, McCurry Motors is ready to put you in a quality vehicle, and in-house financing is available. If you have a job, McCurry Motors will work with you even if you have a bankruptcy, divorce, or... Hey guys, Travis went to voicemail. I'll try him back. Every car comes with a warranty, and they report to the credit bureau. With 2 locations, Highway 72 in Athens, call 256-230-0232, or Max Luther Drive in Huntsville. Call 256-713-0575.
I went up there.
This is Eli Gold, voice of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now more of Talkin Ball with Scott Theisen and Drew DeArmond on your home for Crimson Tide Sports 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Roll Tide.
Hey guys, I got Travis. He is ready to go.
And just like that, we are back. It is 7:27 on a Monday morning. Welcome back to Talking Ball on 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Scott Theisen, Drew DeArmond with you as we touched a little bit on the NFL draft. We told you Alabama had 8 players taken in the first 2 rounds. That's the most since the common draft era began in 1967. We've talked a lot about the first round on Friday, Drew, but it's that rounds 2 through 7 is where your teams really make their hay. But Alabama, I mean, what can you say about that draft class?
Yeah, the only negative, if you want to call it that, was Dylan Moses shockingly being undrafted. I thought he would be a third-day guy, but I thought it would be 4th, 5th round, somewhere in there. And then our good friend Cornbread, Deontay Brown, he had to wait much longer than I thought. He had to wait till the 6th round for Carolina, but certainly he was selected. Now we are hearing, due to loss of value and injuries, that Dylan Moses is still going to get a $10 million insurance policy cashed in. So he's going to still, start his career with injury rehab because he signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars and Urban Meyer after the draft.
Right.
And they're going to allow him to continue to rehab his injuries before starting his pro career. He's going to have to start, from the bottom, so to speak, and earn his way up. But I still think, if Dylan can get healthy, that he can play in the National Football League. It's just unfortunate, I think, with COVID and the injuries, and it was hard to get, FaceTime with guys in person and go over the medicals. I think there was just too much injury uncertainty.
You thought, though, he should have come back.
I really think he should have, like Dante Hightower did after 2010 into 2011. But, that's each and every family's and kid's call. And so Dylan, wanted to move on to the NFL. I think he was probably worried about getting hurt again. And yet now you find out about this insurance situation. And so he's able to cash in there. But I certainly still be rooting for him. But, yeah, it was quite a draft class for Alabama. They had 10 guys selected, including a long snapper, which gives Nick Saban, I think, a player drafted at every position during his 14 years in Tuscaloosa, but place kicker. And Will Reichert may have something to do with that in a couple of years. But we're going to go to our next guest. He's the longtime senior analyst for BamaOnline.com, also the host of Southern Fried Sports from 11 to noon on Tide 100.9. And it's our weekly visit with Travis Reier. Travis, welcome back to the show, man. How are you?
Hey, guys.
Hey, Travis. What's going on, bud? Great to have you back. Quite a infomercial for Alabama. We talked a little bit, though, about Dylan's disappointment, yet still really good opportunity for him. And then you find out about the insurance situation a little bit yesterday, but still a great weekend for Alabama.
It was a front-loaded class, no doubt about it, with the 8 guys in the first 2 rounds, and pretty much a big gap until you got to the 6th round. But exactly what you like to see if you're Nick Saban, guys that made good decisions, and some guys that it took a little longer, some guys that were 3 and out. So sort of that mix we've grown accustomed to seeing from Alabama in the last few years.
Yes, let's start with the first round, and Mac Jones heads to New England. And if we were talking about possible landing spots going in, I think everybody circled San Francisco possibly with that 3rd pick. But then you started looking and thinking, even leading into the draft, Travis, that there was a chance New England could get him. And that just seemed like it would have been a good fit. And indeed, it now could be a good fit.
It definitely appears like it could be. You wondered if, New England might actually trade up into the top 10, but worked out well for, I'd say, both parties. Obviously, if you're Mac, you would love to have gone in that 3 spot to the San Francisco 49ers, but if that wasn't going to be the landing spot, New England certainly connected a lot of dots. So for Mac, a great opportunity. He'll be up there with a couple of Auburn guys, and it sounds like there isn't going to be a rush on his development. The plan still sounds as if Cam Newton will be the guy to start the season, and they'll see how it goes from there. But, it's safe to say Bill Belichick and that familiarity he has with Nick Saban and the Alabama program came into play once again this time around with both Mac Jones going in the first round and then Christian Barmore at number 38 overall in the second.
And that's a great piggyback. I thought it was important for Barmore to go to an organization with strong culture, Travis, because I feel like, he had some emotional maturity to go through at Alabama. I still think he was going through that even at the beginning of last year. And I thought it was important for him to go to a structured organization to continue that progress and to be with a strong general manager and head coach and owner in New England.
No doubt. And also one in which schematically and what he's going to be asked to do lines up pretty well with what he's just been asked to do at Alabama. When you go from Nick Saban to, a defense that is, still overseen in large part by Bill Belichick, those things are going to line up. So it should be pretty seamless for him. And I agree. I think that was the type of situation that was going to be best for him. And I think if he has a chance now to really sustain a career of note in the National Football League, it should be at a place like New England.
Well, were you shocked that he wasn't the first Alabama player taken off the board? Obviously, they went wide receiver for the first one off the board.
Christian Barmore, no, I wasn't surprised at all that he wasn't the first player off the board. But, it wasn't a great year for defensive linemen in terms of sort of marquee defensive linemen. So there was a lot of talk that he could be the first player at his position to go, and that wasn't the case. And again, I think there were some gaps in that resume, and some of the issues that we had seen over the last 3 years, a little bit of boom or bust concern there, I think, with him. And I do think, again, as Drew pointed out, and I agree, New England is the situation that I think will fit him from top to bottom better than any of them out there.
And then Jalen Waddle reuniting with Tua. It seemed to me that that Miami couldn't get it wrong, whether they went with Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle. But Jalen Waddle, we talked about this leading up to the draft, Travis. He's the kind of guy, when healthy, that can affect the game in all three phases. And what I mean by that is, and really four, because you can use him on reverses and of course, gadget running plays, but you can also use him as a receiver, then punt and kickoff return. And I think that's a rarity because there's a lot of guys that are good at one or the other, good at punt return, good at kickoff return. He excels at both, and Miami needed big play potential like that.
Yeah, you can manufacture big plays with Jalen a little bit easier than you could with probably the other receivers in this draft. The quick passing game, easy touches that he can turn into explosive plays. There's no doubt about that. And even with the return game sort of negated to an extent these days based on player safety and rule changes that have come into play in both punt and kickoff returns, he's still a guy that on occasion that's going to give you that. And so no doubt a lot of value in Jalen Waddle when you combine all those factors. And Tua, I'm sure, is happy to have him down there, and a guy that he's worked with in the past, and one of those sort of intermediate to short touches that we had seen in the past with those two was in the SEC championship game in 2018. Just a short crossing route, and Waddle turns that into an explosive play for a touchdown in Atlanta. So I'm sure that's exactly the kind of fate the Miami Dolphins people had in mind when they made that selection at 6.
And the reunion tour doesn't stop there, so to speak. The Philadelphia Eagles get Devontae Smith, and Smith already, as is all draft picks right now, that first round, he's already in Philadelphia, went to a 76ers game with Jalen Hurts the other night. So the reunion tour continuing.
It is. And then you're going to have also, of course, Landon Dickerson up there in Philadelphia with those guys. So,
that's right.
City of brotherly love, right? You're going to have some Alabama brothers up there. So Devontae, obviously the Eagles desperately in need of playmakers on the outside. You're happy for Jalen that if he is going to be the guy, or at least first up to get an opportunity to be the full-time replacement for Carson Wentz, that he'll have a not only capable option, but one that he's familiar with in Devontae. So, it can be a tough town. There's no doubt about it when you talk about Philly. But I think Devontae got some Rocky Balboa in him, right? A bit of an underdog. And so, I think that city will embrace him. And I think he matches up in terms of, his personality and kind of who he is as a competitor. And I think he'll do big things up there. And hopefully it'll be Jalen that's delivering the football to him.
Yeah, and then Jalen center may very well, or guard, left or right. He can play all three positions. But Landon Dickerson's another guy that I think the Philly people will grow to love.
Yeah, I think Landon could pull double duty. He could play guard or center for the Eagles and then bounce at a South Philly bar, in his spare time. He's that kind of dude. I don't think there's any doubt about it. He's a tough guy. He doesn't mind the grit and the grind that comes with playing the position he plays. And, that's an interesting culture fit up there in Philly.
Yeah, it really is. It's going to be very interesting, no doubt. And then before we switch gears, Najee Harris going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's another one that had kind of been speculated on for weeks leading up to the draft and comes to fruition. To me, he's a better version of Le'Veon Bell for them, who was very productive for the Steelers. But they definitely, with James Conner moving on to Arizona, they were looking for a featured back, Travis.
They were. I think some Steeler fans were hoping they would go more offensive line. Maybe even if it was an Alabama player, Landon Dickerson there. But Najee makes a lot of sense. He cures a lot of what ails Pittsburgh potentially. You got to have a guy to help out then, especially at this point in his career, not just in terms of protecting him, but, giving him an easy throw to a guy that's very capable as a receiver. And, Najee has shown the last couple of years you can give it to him 20 times and he can get the job done that way too. So good fit there, like most of these are, I would say, for the Alabama players in this draft, and excited to see what he can do up there.
Yeah, no question. And then to switch gears, and we're talking to Travis Reier, BamaOnline.com senior analyst, and, of course, host of Southern Fried Sports on Tide 100.9. Coach Brad Bohannon and the Alabama Crimson Tide, they get their first home sweep in many, many seasons as they're able to come back on Friday night when things didn't look good. They were down 7-2. They win that one 11-8 when Tyler Ross struggled some. Then we see Dylan Smith, who has pitched much better than his record. If you look at his stats along those lines, probably going to be a high draft pick, Travis. He finally gets his first win of the year with that 5-2 win over Mizzou. And then didn't look good. They're down 2-0 in the seventh inning, but they find a way to scratch 3 runs across. And that bullpen that's become a strength. There's not a lot of depth there at times, but I think they're back in with the Landon Greens and then Chase Lee and then Hunter Ruth coming on. Alabama getting a big sweep 3-2 over Missouri to set themselves up with an opportunity now. 3 tough series, but certainly looking like they have a good shot at getting to Hoover.
Yeah, I think at this point it would be a massive disappointment if they didn't. They're over 500 in league play for the first time this year after that sweep of Mizzou, and good to see the bottom of the lineup start to really come through for them. Softball kind of the same way for Patrick Murphy's team, but Jim Jarvis, Caden Rose, Drew Williamson doing some good things over the weekend. You mentioned the bullpen, Landon Green, Chase Lee closing out games, Hunter Ruth doing an outstanding job in relief as well. So showing some of the makeup you like to see from a team at this time of the year too. Some grit, some ability to come from behind in 2 of those 3 games over the weekend. And, as you said, doesn't get any easier because road trips to Vandy and LSU on tap. And then you get Mississippi State for 3 and Tuscaloosa to close out the regular season. So still plenty of work to do, but I would think even if you're 3-6, which would make you 6-6 over your final 12 when you include that Missouri series, you'd be in pretty good shape looking at Hoover and then NCAA regional play for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to watch. they're getting a lot of production from the young guys, and we'd like to see, Caden Rose. I mean, what a freshman starting to feel and navigate his way through some SEC play.
Yeah, no doubt. Again, I think the bottom of the lineup was part of the story from over the weekend, and Rose kind of carried over some strong play from midweek. So it's good to see. That's what you really have to have in this league. You can have stars, and that's great, in the top 3 or 4 year lineup. And Alabama obviously has that. Peyton Wilson, Will Hamiter, Sam Prater, and guys like that, Owen Diodati. But 5 through 9, you got to get something, and they've been getting that here of late.
Yeah, and of course that last rally started by Jim Jarvis. He chokes up on the bat with 2 strikes, singles up the middle, and Alabama continues to put pressure. A couple of bunts, and one turns into an error, and then a situational hitting from Zane Denton, the sac fly that ends up getting that Alabama win. So some fundamental baseball being played by Alabama, and you mentioned it. Patrick Murphy's group, and I applaud him a lot because Jenna Johnson returned this weekend, made an impact, but she's been out for a while with a knee injury. And then you look at losing your top 2 shortstops to ACLs. He's put Taylor Clark there. She made an error to start the game on Sunday, but then played really flawless softball from that point forward, including getting 2 big hits, Travis. And going forward, she's going to be, as you talked about, bottom of that lineup. She's going to be counted on to get you come through in some clutch situations, and they were able to sweep Georgia. They've beaten Georgia, I think, now 8 straight times with that 6-3 win. They go into the final weekend of the regular season of softball. They host the Ole Miss Rebels. They still have an outside shot. Going to need some help to win the regular season championship, but certainly are hosting the SEC championship, and they are the only host to ever win it. So Alabama still looking very strong under Patrick Murphy to be a national seed and host the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, you got LSU and Arkansas in a doubleheader this afternoon. If you're Alabama, you need LSU to sweep those 2 of
That's
Arkansas
right.
and keep you alive, because an Arkansas win in one of those 2 guarantees Arkansas at least a share of the SEC title. But as you said, regardless, look to be in great shape in terms of a top 8 national seed. And I agree, a great job by Murph and his staff to keep it together with all the injuries. And you said it also with the bottom of the lineup, 5 through 8 on Saturday in that 13-3 win gave Alabama 11 of their 12 RBIs in the game. So kind of like baseball, you like to see it throughout the lineup. That's what we're seeing here of late. Try to close things out against a surging Ole Miss team starting on Thursday at the Rhodes House. Ole Miss has won 3 straight league series, so won't be easy, but Alabama playing some of its very best softball without having some of its very best players.
Very, very well said, Travis. Well, we know BamaOnline.com will have full coverage of all the baseball, softball, and continued football. We may even have some interesting news coming down from the transfer portal for Alabama football. We know that was reported by BamaOnline.com this weekend. And then that would be involving not the Ohio State Buckeye we would be thinking about as far as Ohio State and Alabama battling for Henry To'oTo'o, but a wide receiver potentially could be added for the Tide.
Yeah, you'll want to keep your ears and eyes open probably for that one here in the very near future. So no doubt about it. It's always interesting with the portal. You never quite know who's in it, who's coming out of it, kind of which way the door is swinging on that thing. But that could be some interesting news coming in just a little bit.
No doubt. Well, Travis, thank you. Let everybody know how to connect with you and, of course, BamaOnline.com.
Just go to BamaOnline.com or Alabama.247sports.com. Either way will get you to us. You can also hear me as the host of Southern Fried Sports weekdays from 11 a.m. until noon at Tide109.com.
Thanks, Travis.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Travis Reier sending us to break. When we come back, we'll wrap up our first hour here at Bill Penny Toyota.
You're listening to Talkin Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
They've moved that accident on the ramp westbound 565 to Greenbrier Parkway off into a parking lot. It's a no injury. And we got one person going to the hospital after a shooting incident in the Home Depot parking lot, 10,000 block of South Parkway. The Somnodent from Dr. Sandman's an easy-to-use oral device. Insurance approved for sleep apnea and for snoring. 350-CARE or RandallSandlin.com. Captain Nick in the Jordan Lane Popeye Skywatch Traffic Center.
If you're ready to lower your utility bills, it's time to call Eagle Insulation. Eagle can handle it all. Attic re-insulation, insulation removal, wall insulation, and new construction insulation, commercial and residential. Our primary goal is to save you money, and lots of it. Typical clients realize their return on investment within 3 to 6 months. That means the re-insulation actually pays for itself and then some. See if we can help you. Contact Eagle Insulation today, 256-755-1556, or log on insulatewitheagle.com.
I'm attorney Gary Lackey. You know, you'll hear people say we're like a family, but here at the Lackey Law Firm, that's really true, not just a saying.
I'm Justin Lackey. With my father and my sister, we have a special connection to each other.
I'm Jennifer Lackey. At the Lackey Law Firm, when we take on your case, you become part of our family. You really do.
And we'll always do whatever it takes to get everything you deserve.
If you're injured, you worry about getting well, not about paperwork or insurance companies or figuring out how to get to your lawyer's office. I'll come to you.
We worry about your case so you don't have to.
When you've been injured, we know that your case is probably the biggest thing going on in your life, more important than almost anything else.
And it's important to us too, for one simple reason. Family takes care of each other, and at the Lackey Law Firm, we'll take care of you.
The Lackey Law Firm. The Lackey Law Family. 1-800-4-RIGHTS.
No representation is made that the quality of the legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
Hey folks, this is Arthur Seaton, managing partner of University Kia, here letting you know we are proud supporters of Madison Academy football. And a quick shout out to my son, Avery Seaton, number 19. Stop into University Kia today and shop our large selection of new Kias, including our all-new Telluride 8-passenger SUV, the stylish new K5, and the sporty new Seltos. Visit universitykia.com to view all our great offers and get pre-approved in minutes so you can drive home your new Kia today, because we want to see you in the Kia. Go Mustangs!
This segment of Talkin Ball is brought to you by University Kia, the #1 volume Kia dealer in the state of Alabama, located online at universitykia.com. Leading the way for sports talk in North Alabama.
Winning is the only thing that matters.
Thank you.
It's going to have about 6.5 minutes.
97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
When we were talking to Travis Reier, we were talking about softball.
Yeah.
And we were talking about everything going on. Well, the NCAA, remember, is doing things differently this year when it comes to regional sites. They had every school that wanted to host a regional apply because of the pandemic.
Right.
And they selected 20 teams on Friday that could be potential host sites for the regionals. And then what they're going to do is they're going to take of those 20 teams and pare it down to 16 when it comes time. So the 20 teams that will be eligible to host is Alabama, Arizona, Arizona State, Arkansas, Clemson, Florida, Florida State, Georgia, Kentucky, LSU, Michigan, Missouri, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Oregon, Tennessee, Texas, UCLA, Virginia Tech, and Washington. Those are the 20 teams that they, so like if a team goes on to win said conference, has a great year, they cannot host an NCAA first round regional. Those are the only 20 teams that can host an NCAA opening softball regional this year.
Well, and the interesting part is the Big Ten isn't
one team. I mean, Michigan.
Well, and they didn't even plan out a conference schedule because Joe told them they couldn't. So, with their pathetic leadership out there in the Midwest politically, but that's the last comment about that. But I mean, that's just that's the whole year. If you're in that part of the country, I mean, it's just a train wreck. So just happy that they actually started their season on time and are going to play at least the majority of it. But they're being taken out of the RPI pretty much, because when you're evaluating everybody's resumes and they didn't play out of their league. So you better hope you had a good year, and you better hope you finished in the upper echelon, top 2 or 3 in the Big Ten, because that's probably the only schools that'll be under consideration. There won't be anybody on the bubble, considering that you can't really evaluate them against other conferences because they didn't play outside of the Big Ten.
Well, the NCAA for the regional softball tournaments. Now, this is a minimum, okay?
Right.
At minimum, the NCAA will allow 50% fan capacity at those predetermined sites. Now, that means, so let's say Alabama does go on to host a first round or a regional site. It'll depend, though, on the state and local health mandates at the time. So at minimum, Alabama will be able and allowed to host 50% capacity at minimum. So, I mean, it could be 70 to 80%, but minimum be 50%.
Well, I was watching college baseball this weekend. Ole Miss, they had 100% capacity. They're getting 9,000 to 10,000 people. I mean, they're back to rolling, no doubt about that.
LSU was back to rolling this weekend as well for the first time as well, and I saw some video from down there, and let me tell you,
they were rolling.
The Cajuns were happy.
They weren't getting
at least
the
to
results
be in the
they want.
At least to be in the stands.
They were happy to be back in the stands, and no doubt about it. And
you were also talking to Travis about a wide receiver.
Yes,
as well.
that's what we were referring to. Travis, we didn't want to be a BamaOnline.com has been at the forefront of it, and he, of course, is not letting the cat out of the bag. But I'll do it on the show. This really kind of broke over the weekend, and several days ago, this young man went in the portal, but we didn't connect him to Alabama until this weekend. Though, if you go back and look at his recruiting, odyssey, when he made his decision 2 years ago, it was Alabama and Ohio State. But, Alabama, we've talked about, they've got a lot of good young talent at wide receiver. We saw some of that in the A-Day game and then the spring that they're having to replace the Jalen Waddles and the Devontae Smiths and things of that nature. John Mechie was injured. But Nick Saban wanting a speed element, and he kind of referred to it after A-Day with that wide receiver room. And he's wanting someone that's experienced on the Power 5 level. And, the stars are aligning here, but it looks like Jamison Williams, who has played a role, not a prominent one, but still made plays, had a long touchdown catch, I believe, of about 45 yards in the college football playoff win against Clemson. But the Ohio State receiver, Jamison Williams, who would have 2 years of eligibility left from St. Louis, Missouri, heavy speculation that he's going to choose Alabama early this week, Scott. He's been in the portal now for several days, but Alabama's got 2 slots, and I know that's what you're going to be asked is Henry To'oTo'o.
Right.
And we've kind of been hinting about this on the show because of the progress of the linebacker core, because of the Jalen Moody's, because of Deontay Lawson, what we saw out of him, DeMoye Kennedy, Jackson Bratton. I just don't think that Henry To'oTo'o is being considered a need right now. I think Nick Saban was thinking that a vertical speed threat is a bigger need at wide receiver. So I think Alabama's going to add him because I think they've got a couple of slots. And, of course, the second slot being JT Tuilamoau, a guy that Alabama has been targeting and recruiting heavily for many months. And we talked about him taking his official visits in June, a defensive lineman out of the state of Washington. I think Alabama is going to continue to pursue him. So I think Henry To'oTo'o is probably going to almost be like a trade. He's going to end up in Columbus at Ohio State, but Jamison Williams from St. Louis, Missouri, the former 5-star wide receiver, is going to end up in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, 24/7 Sports had him as a 4-star prospect.
4-star, yeah.
Now, he was a number 1 overall prospect, though, in the state of Missouri.
Yes,
the number 13th wide receiver prospect in his class. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned in his first 2 years at Ohio State, Drew, he only played 10 games, 15 catches, 266 yards, 3 touchdowns, averaging 17.7 yards per catch at Ohio State sparingly.
And remember, last year, it's kind of skewed because he played a bigger role as a sophomore, but remember, they only played,
they only played 10 games. No.
They didn't play even 10. Yeah. Remember, they only played due to the ridiculous stipulations that their great leadership put on them. I think they only played 7 games. So, that's the Big Ten didn't come close to playing a complete schedule because they were too busy being Corona bros, trying to believe that you couldn't play football, and then they didn't get started until late. And so he might have put up bigger numbers if that were the case. So again, it's all about the experience, the speed, and I think that's the aspect that Nick Saban wants to add. And they've had good runs out of the portal with wide receivers. Richard Mullaney from Oregon State came over and was a big part of it.
Yeah.
And then Garrick Dieter from Miami of Ohio. So they've had and Garrick still with the Super Bowl champion Chiefs. So they've had some really good production out of wide receivers out of the portal, and I think they believe that Jameson Williams can be the third guy to do that.
Wow. Can you believe it? That's hour one done of our Monday edition, our first edition of the week here on Talking Ball live from Bill Penny Toyota out here at the service department.
Well, I feel like I'm at the Legends because Bill Penny Toyota is packed. And we, our great sponsors, we appreciate it.
We just don't have the omelets like we had on Friday.
Yeah, we can't raise our hands. I haven't eaten an omelet here. But, that was some good stuff, no doubt about it. We don't have the Falcon Crest music, but it was certainly an experience. We appreciate the Legends, but we appreciate Bill Penny. They've been with us for a long time. And come out, let them service your vehicle. They're open from 7 to, I believe, 5 p.m. today.
7 to 5 Monday through Friday, and 7 to 5. Actually, they're open until 7 o'clock Monday through Friday. They're open on Saturday from 7 to 5 for the service department.
Closed on Sunday.
Want to call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline? We have a new number for you. 888-256-576-4977.
Hold it.
That's 256-576-4977.
Well, what do you know?
We promise this number will be the one we keep. 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Tom Luganbill here for Woody Anderson Ford. When I was in the Tennessee Valley, one of the things that impressed me the most was the quality of the people. People like Bobby White and his team at Woody Anderson Ford. And now you can experience the tremendous new service lanes and showroom at Woody Anderson Ford, at Jordan and Sparkman, or just stop by for breakfast or lunch at Henry's Mustang Cafe. And in Madison, visit Woody Anderson of Madison on Hughes Road, just south of 72. Like a great college football tradition, always there, Woody Anderson Ford.
WZZN, Union Grove, Huntsville, Alabama. 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
They've moved that accident on the ramp westbound 565 to Greenbrier Parkway off into a parking lot. It's a no injury. And we got one person going to the hospital after a shooting incident in the Home Depot parking lot, 10,000 block of South Parkway. The Somnodent from Dr. Sandman's an easy-to-use oral device. Insurance approved for sleep apnea and for snoring. 350-CARE or RandallSandlin.com. Captain Neck in the Jordan Lane Popeye Skywatch Traffic Center.
From the WZDX Pinpoint Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Emily Owen. For this Monday, expect a few isolated showers and thunderstorms mainly before the afternoon. We'll see a partly sunny sky. High temperatures will top out in the lower 80s. And for your Monday night, expect a few scattered showers. Otherwise, we'll see a partly cloudy sky. Low temperatures will fall into the upper 60s. I'm meteorologist Emily Owen on your home for ESPN Radio 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
This is Brett Musburger's Action Update. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all of your car care needs. Stop by your local O'Reilly Auto Parts today. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better prices every day. Now, here are the latest lines from my guys in the desert.
Baseball, the Braves will try to bounce back from being swept by the Blue Jays when they open a series against the Nationals tomorrow night. Atlanta currently at plus 1,500 odds to win the World Series, plus 900 to win the pennant after opening the season at plus 500. NBA tonight, the Hawks at home against the Trailblazers. Atlanta favored by 1.5. Money line's currently even at minus 110 apiece. It'll tip off at 7 o'clock. A look ahead to a week from Saturday, May 15th in Houston, UFC 262. Michael Chandler and Charles Oliveira battling for the vacant lightweight title. Oliveira the favorite, minus 125 on the money line. Chandler at plus 105. I'm Trey Westerberg, 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Log on today, 977ESPN.com. Welcome to Talkin Ball with Scott Tyson and Drew DeArmond. Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline now. 256-576-4977. That's 256-576-4977. Now, here's Scott and Drew.
Here we go. As always, we kick off hour number 2, courtesy of our good friends over at Terrell Technical Services Incorporated in Madison. They offer that full line of environmental health and safety services, including industrial hygiene, asbestos, mold and bacterial services, Legionella testing and water management plans, lead-based paint inspection assessments and abatement plans, environmental site assessments, LEED certified air testing, and more. Their staff holds all US EPA accreditations and nationally recognized certifications and credentials to necessitate your project to completion. Give General Technical Services a call today at 256-461-9278 to discuss your environmental health or safety needs. Again, 256-461-9278 to get a hold of our good friends over at Terrell Technical Services Incorporated. And we kick off hour number 2 from Bill Penny Toyota out here in the service department. And we talked a little bit about some SEC baseball with Travis Reier. But if you want to get in on the show, though, by the way, 256-576-4977. That is the number of the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. We can get your reactions to the NFL draft. We can get your reactions to anything that you happened over the weekend. But Alabama baseball gets the sweep over Missouri, and Auburn finally wins a series over 20th-ranked Georgia.
Yeah, on the road. Got 2 out of 3. So Butch Thompson's group still fighting, and they're still alive. I mean, but with Missouri struggles, Texas A&M struggles, Auburn can still get to Hoover. That looked bleak for a while, but getting that series win injected some life. They've continued to swing the bats well. The pitching's starting to get healthier. So it's going to be tough to get into a regional,
right?
Because of the win-loss record for Auburn. But right now, the focus should be on getting to Hoover, and they've still got a chance to do that in battle. So,
well, they are tied with Missouri, Texas A&M, and right there, all 3 schools are 5-16 right now in SEC play.
And one of those will go to Hoover.
LSU 7-14. So
LSU right now is still, I think, got a strong chance to get to Hoover. Really, 12 of the 14 get there, Scott.
Right.
And so when you're looking at it, you just mentioned Missouri, you just mentioned Auburn, you just mentioned A&M. One of those 3 will be in Hoover. And if you're the Hoover folks, you're crossing your fingers and toes that it's Auburn because it helps with ticket sales and a lot of Auburn fans turning out. It's in the state of Alabama. Certainly, Texas A&M not used to being in that position, but they're having a rebuilding year under Rob Childress. And certainly the Missouri Tigers and Steve Beazer, they just have had a rough year. They could have easily won the Alabama series. They were leading late in 2 games, but they just collapsed. It's just one of those years where things have not gone well. Max Scherzer's not walking through that door, as people would say right now. So Missouri's just going through a rebuilding year and probably going to miss the postseason. But we don't want to say that yet. There's 3 weekends left. That's what I was telling people because the Alabama fans are getting excited. Oh, they're going back to Hoover. I think that's correct. But look, there's still a lot of baseball to be played. Not a lot of midweek baseball, but a lot of weekend baseball. And Alabama certainly going to be facing a mad Vanderbilt team who dropped their second SEC series of the year up at Florida, Scott, as the Gators beat the Commodores 2 out of 3. So they're going to be facing Alabama this weekend.
You look at that SEC East as far as baseball goes. Vanderbilt and Tennessee atop there at 14-7. Florida right behind at 13-8. South Carolina 11-10. Those are your above 500 teams. In the West, Arkansas is leading 15-6, followed by Mississippi State at 14-7. Ole Miss 13-8, and Bama 11-10. Those are your above 500 teams in the West.
That's how tough the SEC is because Ole Miss, wins the series this weekend. They end up sweeping South Carolina. I think they'd lost 4 straight series for the first time since 2002. The league is a just absolute meat grinder. And the key, really, I've said this many times, is not getting swept. And Alabama did have that happen to them against Ole Miss when they blew the first game in that series. But what you have to do, and that's what the Tide's got to do in the last 9, They need to go 3-6 or 4-5. I mean, certainly you'd love to have a winning record, but I'm just trying to be realistic here when you're facing Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, and LSU. Certainly this is not a vintage LSU team, but you're still going to Baton Rouge, as you just got through saying, to play against a full house.
Right.
So, so Alabama's going to have their work cut out for them, but they've certainly earned an opportunity. Auburn has earned an opportunity after winning at Georgia this weekend. So we'll be following, you'll be able to hear all Alabama SEC, action here on 97.7 The Zone, and we'll continue to monitor the Auburn situation. So going to be some very interesting baseball, as you said, being played in the next 3 weeks.
All right, we've talked some NFL draft. We talked about Alabama and their players. What about the rest of it? We've talked some Atlanta Falcons, but the Tennessee Titans, what kind of draft did the Tennessee Titans have over the weekend? Well, they picked one of our favorite players because he's from our area, and that being Monty Rice, Drew, headed to the Tennessee Titans.
Really happy for Monty, man. He got picked in the latter stages of the third round, and I still think he's going to have a really solid pro career. Gets to stay, within the Southeast, near where he grew up. After having a standout career at Georgia, we talked to him during the process. He was just ready for an opportunity. And I think he's got an outstanding win under Mike Vrabel. I expect him to at least be a special team stalwart as a rookie. We'll see how much time he gets in the defense. But football IQ is his deal, man. He's a really smart guy. And I think that was an outstanding pick by the Tennessee Titans, bringing in Monty Rice.
Yeah, because they lost Will Compton, Darren Bates, and Nick Zunbar. The Titans needed to add some talent and depth to that linebacker position, and they do so in getting Monty Rice. If you're looking at the Tennessee Titans as a whole, as a draft class, well, so far you have to like what they did. The draft class, probably not an A+ because the 2019 draft was the gold standard for the Tennessee Titans franchise. Probably an A is what you would have to probably give the Tennessee Titans for their draft. They went out and they grabbed some individual picks, some good individual picks as well. I'm trying to see here.
Right.
They added some depth along the way. Of course, it's not pulling up. I had everything right here, and it's not pulling up for me. But the Titans get offensive tackle Dylan Radnews as well, and they get Monty Rice at the linebacker position.
Caleb Farley was their first-round pick, and he's interesting out of Virginia Tech because he's coming off of the back surgery. And he was the first young man to opt out. I mean, he was considered at one time maybe a top 5 pick, but the Titans get Caleb Farley at number 22. You already talked about Radnews from North Dakota State, from another one of the guys that only played in the one game. He's coming out. I believe he protected the blind side of Trey Lance. So Dylan Radnews, and the Titans have probably got an opening at right tackle. So this could be a guy they plug in. 92nd overall, we talked about Monty Rice. And then another opt-out from Washington, Elijah Molden, in round 3, near the about 8 picks after they take Monty. And then on the last day of the draft, they tried to add some D-line depth, Rashad Weaver in round 4. And then they had 2 6th-round picks. And they take Racey McMath, who had a really good senior year at LSU, as kind of a role player. I would imagine he's going to be a special teams demon and then situational receiver. And then Brady Breeze, from the safety from Oregon in round 6 to add some depth to that secondary. So, but the one thing that they didn't do that I think a lot of people are wondering is they didn't kind of address wide receiver except for McMath, and he's not really what they were looking for, like what some, fans and things of that nature. And now the speculation is going to continue to talk about Julio Jones because of his situation with the salary cap in Atlanta, if he is ultimately traded. And the Titans have kind of been in conversation about that. I know John Robinson, the GM, was asked about Julio. He said no comment.
Right.
And so, A.J. Brown's a big fan of Julio's, and Julio would be a great fit for Tennessee, but we'll have to see long term. We're fixing to talk to Tori McElhaney of The Athletic, and she covers the Falcons. We'll ask her about Julio in that situation, but some are linking Julio potentially to the Titans.
As you mentioned, we'll talk Atlanta Falcons draft and everything coming up here in about 10 minutes. So stay with us as we continue to kind of reflect or kind of go over some NFL draft talk. And once again, 256-576-4977. That's the number to the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline if you want to get in on the conversation on this Monday morning.
Yeah, we haven't really given the weekend report from we talked about it briefly to start the show. Playing the Blue Jays.
The Atlanta Braves,
in Florida, but it was awful. It was another disaster, 3-game sweep, and our good friend and caller Shane, he was tweeting at me all weekend. He was just absolutely beside himself. Couldn't believe what was going on with Atlanta as they just didn't play very well, didn't pitch very well throughout the weekend. It was another thud for the pitching staff for Atlanta. And so they're not swinging. They're swinging the bats okay, but not great. They couldn't hold leads. But wasn't a good weekend for the Braves. So they've got to kind of pick up the pieces and see if they can get it going. But it's tough right now. The Braves and they lose their catcher Travis DeArmond. That was the big blow of the weekend. He sprains his thumb, Scott, and is put on the 60-day DL. So they've got to go with the young catchers. They've got Alec Jackson right now. I'm assuming Contreras is going to be called up. But Atlanta, it's been one of those years. It's just like patching holes.
I believe Max Fried, though, is able to come off the IL.
Yeah.
And he should get a start, I believe, against the Nationals in the series. So that could help the Atlanta Braves just a little bit.
They need him to really get out of this funk. And so they need their starting pitching, which has not been good. Really, their pitching as a whole has been atrocious.
Right.
So they needed it to turn around, and that's why because the bats have started to warm up, but the pitching has not been good either at the front or the back end. So the Atlanta Braves, they had a rough weekend in Florida playing against the Blue Jays, and now, as you said, they need to start getting healthier, and Max Fried needs to really return to that form of being a true number one.
All right, if you were paying attention to the show in the first hour, we got on a conversation about quarterbacks that should be looked at or going to be looked at in this next round for 2022 as far as the NFL draft goes. And one of the names that Drew mentioned was former Auburn quarterback Malik Willis at Liberty, and that he is on the list of potential quarterbacks that will be highlighted in the 2022 draft class. Hard to believe that time. I mean, it's one of those things where, you get done with the college football season and we start talking about the way too early poll for the next year, or college basketball. They've already got Alabama penciled in as a 1 seed in the college basketball tournament. And as soon as that NFL draft is done, we start looking ahead to the 2022 NFL draft. And Malik Willis is there. But you look at the SEC, Drew, and you look around the league, Mac Jones came out of nowhere this past season, kind of like a Joe Burrow-esque late mid-round pick, possibly 4th, 5th round pick, if that, becomes a first-round pick. Could have gone number 3, but ends up falling down to the Patriots. By the way, that was the first quarterback Bill Belichick has selected in the first round in his career, Mac Jones. But is there a quarterback in the SEC right now that you can sit there and say, potentially, we're not talking about him now, but by the end of this next year, we're going to say this quarterback could go in the first round? Is there a quarterback in the SEC this coming year that can take that torch?
Potentially JT Daniels, but we'll see how good he ends up being. I mean, this is a guy that lost his job to Keon Slovis at USC, and Slovis may be a first-round pick. If he has a big year, no doubt that USC QBs are always hyped, and Keon Slovis, if he does develop and have a big year, he was so last year, but again, it was a COVID year. The Pac-12 and the Big Ten were disasters because they didn't handle the season right. So, but if Slovis has a really good fall, then he can potentially be a number one pick. That would not be a huge shock. JT Daniels, I think, could develop into a high draft. Matt Corral under Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
Can he avoid the disaster games like the Arkansas game last year?
Or was it 5 interceptions?
Yeah,
or
where he just has a meltdown. Because he played at a high level for much of the year. You looked at his stats. So Matt Corral going into his second full year as a starter under Lane Kiffin, who's an offensive mastermind. You'll look at JT Daniels and Matt Corral. So I think because Bryce Young is not eligible for the draft, so you won't see.
Florida's breaking in a new quarterback.
Florida's breaking in a new QB. So it's going to be interesting. We'll see. Mike Leach's guy will be a second-year guy. But he's not eligible for the draft either. But as far as draft-eligible QBs, to me, it'll be those two.
It's funny because had Bo Nix taken the progression,
Bo Nix will be the third. But
we thought he would have been in that conversation, but his progression hasn't developed.
Yeah, he could have a monster year. We don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty around his development. But certainly as a third-year starter in the SEC, he's going to be a huge part of what Auburn's doing, and he would probably be third on that list. But he's the most uncertain. And then Miles Brennan at LSU, is he even going to win the job? Or is it going to be Max Johnson? Because Brennan people forget he was playing at a very high level, averaging 400 yards passing per game. He just had a pathetic defense.
Right.
Okay? And then got injured. Had a weird injury, missed the majority of the season. But again, Miles Brennan or Max Johnson, whoever's pulling the trigger for LSU is going to be very interesting.
All right, it's going to be an interesting year in the SEC for quarterbacks. That is for sure.
Yeah, and then who's going to emerge? And I think that was kind of what Bruce Feldman was talking about with Malik Willis, because we understand that Liberty doesn't play as tough a schedule.
Right.
Okay, but they were very good last year. They beat a lot of ranked teams. They're going to have a target on their back. If they play at a high level again under Hugh Freeze, Malik Willis is going to get a lot of pub. And so it doesn't take a lot. Look what happened with Trey Lance.
I was going to say, is that similar to a Trey Lance?
It has to be. It has to be. So that's the kind of parallel you talk about. And he is a former Power 5 QB at Auburn. So, there'll be a lot of people watching Malik Willis, who played very well in the COVID year last year, and who will be taking a lot of, almost 2 years experience under Hugh Freeze as they go into the fall.
We'll have to see who. I have not seen. Liberty usually plays a couple big time non-conference games, and I haven't seen who they play this coming year to find out. If he is going to get kind of that Trey Lance kind of that showcase game, those couple showcase games, because when Liberty did have. When they were, I think this past year, they did go on the road and play. I think they stacked it with all ACC teams this past year because the ACC was the one conference that was playing the non-conference games.
The second week of the season, they will be at Troy within the state of Alabama. And then the Hugh Freeze show will go to Syracuse at the end of September. So they will have and that's a winnable game. As a matter of fact, and then as Hugh Freeze continues his Alabama tour, they will go to UAB on Saturday, October the 2nd, for the new stadium there.
Yes.
And so that will be almost assuredly a TV game on Saturday, October the 2nd, as the Liberty Flame take on Bill Clark's UAB Blazers. And how ironic is this? Buy your tickets now. It will be a sellout. Saturday, November the 6th, the Liberty Flames, of all places, at Ole Miss.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my. Oh, my. There's a lot of things we can go into on that.
That'll be a fun week.
What kind of reception would Hugh Freeze, what kind of reception will Hugh Freeze get when he returns to Ole Miss and Oxford?
Yeah.
I mean.
Wow.
Wow. Hide your burner phones.
Yeah. Or maybe some 1-800 numbers thrown out there. Well,
there's a lot of avenues you could go with that. We'll talk more about that though when the football season gets in, because that's going to be too good.
Well, speaking of football, we got a first-time guest going to join us. Tori McElhaney is going to join us and talk Atlanta Falcons draft from the Athletic next on 97.7 The Zone after this break, live from Bill Penny.
Can't believe that. Ole Miss and Liberty.
You're listening to Talkin Ball on 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
They pulled that wreck in Decatur on 20 near Woodall out of the way, not causing any major problems for traffic. Everything else looking pretty good this morning. We've had a few other accidents, but they've been moved out of the way quickly. Popeye's Rippin' Chicken Sampler has 2 chicken breasts, 8 butterfly shrimp, 2 sides, and 2 biscuits, all for $10 at Popeye's. Captain Nick in the Jordan Lane, Popeye's Skywatch Traffic Center.
Sitting here with Ann Adams of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Rise Real Estate. Is it a good time to sell your home, Ann?
Yes, it is. We have people relocating from all over the country.
Why should we choose Rise Real Estate?
Well, we've been selling real estate in North Alabama for 36 years and have sold more real estate than any other real estate company, period.
Do you help your customers through the entire process?
Yes, our agents are with you during the whole process from start to finish, from beginning to end.
In your relocation services, you have a whole team.
Yes, we have a dedicated relocation department helping customers move seamlessly into the area.
Ann Adams has been writing contracts for the last 36 years. She has the experience to help you list and sell your home, downsize your home, or help pick the perfect spot north of Alabama for you to build a future.
Call Ann Adams at 256-337-2625 or on the web at www.bhhsriserealestate.com. McCurry Motors is your car and van rental headquarters. You can rent the vehicle you need today. Family in town, sporting event, church function, no matter what your need, McCurry Motors has you covered with a wide selection of cars and vans available for rent. They have 12-passenger Mercedes Sprinter vans, 12-passenger Ford Transit vans, 15-passenger Ford Transit vans, and 15-passenger Chevrolet Express vans. They have 2 locations, Highway 72 in Athens or Max Luther Drive in Huntsville.
When I chose a garage door company, I did my homework. I needed Precision Overhead Garage Door Service. They have a 5-star Google rating. I checked the reviews and liked what their customers had to say. Precision Overhead Garage Door has lifetime warranty packages. Same-day service if I call before 2 p.m. If they can't make it the same day, my service call fee the next day is waived. They did a 25-point safety inspection on the door and operator. Now that's peace of mind. Residential, commercial, and gate services. Precision Overhead Garage Door Service. Call 256-400-4500.
This is Paul Feinbaum. Listen to me coming up today at 2. Now back to Talking Ball with Scott Tyson and Drew DeArmond on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
And welcome back. Talking Ball, 97.7 ESPN, The Zone. We've talked some college football, Major League Baseball, SEC baseball, and, well, we focused a little bit on the NFL draft. It was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday extravaganza in Cleveland. It was good to see the fans out and back. It was good to see all the picks go in. And as we mentioned, Drew, you don't win the draft on the first day. You win the draft on day 2 and day 3 with rounds 2 through 7. The Atlanta Falcons had some decisions to make. The biggest one, I think, still looms, and that is, what do you do with Julio Jones? And obviously the salary cap hit is the big equation there, and we all know the situation. We've talked all about the salary cap situation with the Falcons and Julio Jones.
Yeah, and who better than to help us? She does a great job covering the Falcons beat for The Athletic, and she's going to join us for the first time on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. She's had a busy weekend. She was in a wedding, but she also covered the Falcons draft extensively. And has put out an outstanding column. We're just just picking her brain right, just looking at her stuff right now. Great stuff from Tori McElhaney, and she's been good enough to join us on the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline. Tori, you're with Drew and Scott here in Huntsville, Alabama. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are y'all?
We are
Doing
really good. We are the NFL draft out, golfed out. We had a big, busy weekend monitoring, of course, the Huntsville Championship here on the Korn Ferry Tour, but also the NFL draft. We had our eyes on that, and we're a Falcons affiliate, so we were watching the Atlanta Falcons quite extensively. Really, I guess the big question was, what were they going to do? We all thought that the third pick and the fourth pick were where the draft was really going to start, because we knew that the 49ers were going to take a quarterback. We just didn't know which one. It ends up being Trey Lance. And then what were the Atlanta Falcons going to do? Were they going to draft Matt Ryan's successor, or were they going to go with Kyle Pitts? I thought Kyle Pitts was an outstanding pick, but what were your thoughts on what Atlanta did with pick number 4?
Yeah, I thought, and I still believe this, that if Trey Lance would have been on the board at number 4, I think it changes Atlanta's plans. And I think that, I think that if he drops, then that's probably where the Falcons land, is they would have taken Trey Lance at number 4. But, he didn't. he gets taken at number 3, and the Falcons still get a really great player at number 4 with Kyle Pitts. And I think it just makes sense. Like, the way everything worked out, it makes sense. And I think Kyle Pitts is going to be, I said this before the draft, he's going to be a great player regardless of where he goes. Well, now he's in Atlanta, and I think he'll do some good things in this scheme that Arthur Smith will be starting to put together here soon.
Yeah, I think, as far as from the fan perspective, I think the fans kind of exhaled a little bit when they heard Kyle Pitts' name. What do you think the reaction would have been if Trey Lance would have fallen, if the Falcons would have taken Trey Lance?
Oh, man, it's hard to say, because I feel like this fan base was very split in a lot of different directions. I think a lot of people wanted Justin Fields. I think a lot of people wanted Kyle Pitts. I think a lot of people wanted Trey Lance. Wow. So I think regardless of where the Falcons went with that number 4 pick, there were going to be people who didn't like it, and there were going to be people who loved it. And I think when I think about it, the easiest choice, the safest choice was Kyle Pitts, and not drafting Matt Ryan's successor, whether it be Trey Lance or Justin Fields.
Well, and Tori, just as you came on with us, we saw some breaking news, and this is kind of it makes sense because of the drafting of Kyle Pitts and the big role he's going to play on this offense. But I know before last season they traded for Hayden Hurst, but it looks like they will not pick up his 5th-year option.
And that's like what you said. It's a very expected move. Calvin Ridley should have his 5th-year option extended to him. Nothing official yet, but that's an expected development for potentially later today. But Hayden Hurst not getting his 5th-year option picked up makes sense. I mean, you bring in the number 4 pick, which is Kyle Pitts, and and you look back on kind of what Hayden Hurst's role was in 2020. And while I think he did some good things, I think he was underutilized in Dirk Cutter's offensive scheme. Can that change in 2021 with Arthur Smith? Absolutely. He loves his tight ends. He's very biased towards his tight ends. He even said that on Friday night or Thursday night, whenever it was. All of my days are running together. But it makes sense. And I think considering the salary cap situation, just trying to make room and figure out how to even get some funds for down the road, I think it was very expected.
All right, the biggest question in the room. I mean, the Atlanta Falcons could have had 30 draft picks, and still people want to know the Julio Jones situation and the Julio Jones outcome.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I would love to know the Julio Jones outcome. I mean, I'm sitting here, the draft is over, and we have quite a bit of time until June 1st. We have, I say quite a bit of time. We have a month.
Right.
So things could come up in the next month. But right now, we don't know what the future of Julio Jones in Atlanta looks like. And there are talks happening, how extensive those talks are, how true those talks are. We don't know the answers to that yet. Terry Fontenot has said since he came in, since the day after he took the job, that he would take calls from any team, any organization regarding any player on the roster. And he always has said that he's been open to listening, and that always included Julio Jones. And so right now, we don't know what that future looks like. It makes sense if a good trade is on the table for a trade post June 1st, that they would take that, because they got to make some money. They got to get some funds to sign this draft class, because they don't have that right now. So it makes sense if there is a willing trade partner and they can get what they want for Julio Jones. But we don't know if that's going to happen. There has to be two to tango. We don't know what the trade offers are. So it's going to be a very interesting situation to keep an eye on for the next month.
That's interesting that they do not have the financial cap to pay for the draft picks that they just drafted.
Yeah, salary cap is not good right now. They've got to make some changes, and they've got to, as Terry Fontenot said, they got to make some tough decisions. But as you just wrote, though, speaking of the Falcons, they going into the draft, they had a lot of defensive issues, safety being amongst the most important. And as you wrote, you felt like that their second-round draft pick was the best pick of the draft class in your mind.
Yeah, no, I know a lot of people are going to say Kyle Pitts, and it was really hard for me not to say Kyle Pitts when I was writing that. But I just thought that Richie Grant was, in terms of need, the Falcons need him more than essentially they need Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is going to be a generational evolutionary player. Absolutely, he already is. But in terms of what the Falcons needed, they needed a safety. And they needed someone to come in and kind of take up that mantle and be the future and the face of this position group, because they are literally rebuilding it from the ground up. And I know they got Deron Harmon and Eric Harris in free agency, but they're only on 1-year deals. So you knew the Falcons, there was a lot of pressure to draft the future of this position group. And I think Richie Grant is a pretty solid pickup for the Falcons, and I think he will do some good things. Maybe not in his rookie year. There might be a lot of growing pains, like there are for a lot of rookies in the league. But I think his upside is something for Falcon fans to be excited about.
Did you looked at their needs going into the draft, and there was a lot of extensive needs. There was a lot of positions where you could have picked somebody to do it. Overall, though, do you think the Falcons solved a lot of their needs in the 3 days?
I do. I think, they got some secondary help, which was very important. They got lines of scrimmage help, which that's something that I found super interesting. If you go back to one of the very first conversations that we ever had with Arthur Smith, someone asked him what his ideal roster looks like, and he said he was like, you have depth on both lines of scrimmage, and they pick up 4 guys on the line of scrimmage, 2 offensive linemen, 2 defensive linemen. That was really, really important. What surprised me was that they didn't draft a running back. I still am pretty surprised that they didn't draft a running back, because that was something that I thought that they were definitely going to do and pursue, but I think it just didn't fall the way that they wanted to. And I think a lot of the needs of the in the trenches and in the secondary, I think those needs outweighed the running back situation, just because I think they do have a lot of confidence in what Mike Davis will be able to provide them. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out, the whole running back situation. And it may be, 2022 that need becomes more apparent, because at that point you would only have Mike Davis for 1 more year.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. Do you think, Tori, that running back wise, we see, you talked about June 1st, then we'll see what they do with Julio Jones. Would running back maybe be a position that they maybe address this summer before training camp?
Yeah, no, I think the door is absolutely open for them to address that, through free agency or through a trade or whatever the means may be this summer. They're just going to have to find the money to do it. And I think that's where I have so much hesitancy about, what's going to happen this summer. It's like, well, the Falcons have just got to get some money to be able to even make moves. And I think it was really interesting when we were talking to Terry Fontenot before the draft even started about the salary cap situation. He was like, yeah, we're well aware of what the situation is. We know it's going to be a challenge. And the question was broached to him, how does this affect your draft plans? And he said, it doesn't affect the draft plans. We're going to bring in a whole class, and it's going to be a pretty big class, but he said it probably will affect what we do in free agency and through trades in the summer. And I think that's really important to note when you're thinking about, okay, how are the Falcons going to continue to build this roster?
You know, you mentioned the salary cap and everything and the money situation. We see teams have to go through this all the time. You know, New England had to go through it last year where they just didn't have a lot of the money to go out and do a lot of things. But a lot of times teams have plans and they try not to get in this bad of a situation. It seems like Atlanta's situation with the salary cap and money is something that I don't want to say it caught them off guard, but it doesn't seem like they were prepared for this year to be in this situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, you think about what the situation was that Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith inherited, and I think everyone knew going into this offseason, regardless of who was going to be at the top, that the salary cap situation was going to be tough, especially with the cap lowering this year.
Okay.
Granted, they'll probably be in a better situation come next year when the cap rises and you get a little money, you know, you have money pushed down the line, whatever. But I said for a long time that I do not envy Terry Fontenot's job at all. I said before even Terry Fontenot was hired, I do not envy the situation a new general manager was having to come into in Atlanta, because this is a tough situation money-wise that someone is having to inherit. And so I think it maybe caught off guard isn't the best way to describe it, because I wouldn't say Terry Fontenot was caught off guard with the situation because he knew what he was getting himself into. I think it's just one of those things where the timing of it and then also the ramifications of the COVID-19 pandemic kind of all
okay.
with Terry Fontenot in his very first year, that it's like, all right, the Falcons don't have any money.
Yeah, I mean, it's just what he said. He was Terry Fontenot's been transparent. He said we're going to have to make very tough decisions, and they're going to have to do that, no doubt, Tori. And before we let you go, I wanted to ask you too, though. The offensively, there's a lot of weapons on this team right now, no doubt about it. A veteran quarterback, but the offensive line still needed some refinement. Tell us about they draft a couple of guys, Jalen Mayfield and Drew DeArmond, in the third and fourth round, respectively. Where do you see them fitting in this offensive line going into the 2021 season for the Falcons?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm excited to see kind of the development of these two guys, because they have a chance to come in and compete for potentially some starting roles if they have good training camps and if they really flash in some areas. I think Jalen Mayfield is very interesting. I'm very interested to see what the developmental plan for him will look like, because, you know, he's a tackle. He's a tackle in Michigan, and that's where he kind of staked his claim. But the Falcons have an opening at left guard, and it's an opening up for anybody because no one's really there to fill it just yet. I had a roster or depth chart projection, starters projection that ran this morning, and I kind of had Josh Andrews being the starter at left guard, but I even said then, I was like, I'm not 100% sold on this. I think that according to how Jalen Mayfield can develop will be really, really important. Can he do it in a short amount of time and be ready day one to take over that starting left guard spot? Sure, but that's going to be a tough ask. And then with Drew DeArmond, I think it was definitely a pick to add some competition to push Matt Hennessy at center. Matt Hennessy drafted last year, the heir apparent to Alex Mack, but Drew DeArmond looks pretty good. And I think it'll be really interesting to watch these two push each other and see who kind of wins out in that slot.
Well, Falcons fans are excited because there'll be full attendance there at Mercedes-Benz Stadium come the fall. I know Falcons fans are excited to see this team, and Alabama fans are happy to hear that news as well, because they open up in there against Miami. So the good news is Falcons fans will be back to see this team next year.
Absolutely. I mean, that's it. Everybody's excited about it.
No question. And we're going to continue to follow your outstanding work as June 1st looms, and the Falcons will have some more roster moves. And then, of course, before we know it, training camp. And then, of course, they're going to announce the schedule soon, too. Then we'll have the Atlanta Falcons back on our airwaves here at 97.7 The Zone. Well, Tori, we appreciate the time greatly. Great knowledge. And please allow everyone to know how to connect with you and read your work with The Athletic.
Yeah.
Yeah, y'all can follow me on Twitter. It's at Tori _McElhaney. And then all of my work's on the athletic site, and we have a lot of content coming up in this week, kind of reacting to the draft, and grades are in, and we're doing a bunch of analysis, and so it's really exciting to kind of look at what's happening next. And so, yeah, everybody can follow me on The Athletic as well. But thank you for having me on, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, Tori, how do they feel about the 17-game schedule, though? You mentioned the schedule. How do they feel about the enlarged schedule?
I think people are excited about it. I mean, I think even when we were talking to Arthur Blank, this was a couple months ago, he was excited about adding that extra game, especially for fans, now that fans can actually be in the stands.
Yeah, Arthur Blank. Yeah, I thought it was an interesting part of the draft. The owners and the coaches did a lot of the announcing of said draft picks on the second and third days. Well, Tori, thank you. Great coverage, and we look forward to featuring you again as football gets even closer. But we appreciate the time today.
Yes, thanks, Tori.
Absolutely. Yeah, y'all have a good one.
I think, yeah, that's some interesting stuff there with the Falcons, and I just can't get over the fact that here's a billion-dollar franchise. And right now, they're because of the pandemic and the salary cap lowering.
Well,
they don't have money right now to sign their draft picks.
Unfortunately, Thomas Dimitroff, they put a lot of money into. They thought they were going to be a lot better,
right?
Okay, and they put money into Grady Jarrett, into Deion Jones, into some of these guys that. And Grady and Deion are good players, but they've had to restructure their contracts. They had some other disasters that didn't go well defensively, the Tack McKinleys and people of that nature that didn't develop. I think they held on to their head coach a year too long. There were some bad decisions made by that front office, and they've got a totally new regimen. And Terry Fontenot came in. They are inheriting a lot of issues. And like Tori said, and the cap went down. So you've got to deal with it. They've got to make some difficult decisions. Will Julio restructure his contract? Will he be traded? We don't know. I'd certainly like to see Julio, Calvin Ridley, and Kyle Pitts play with Matt Ryan and see how this goes. But the Falcons, I would think they would also, as she mentioned, address running back in free agency before the season starts, because the Todd Gurley situation did not work out last year. But certainly some interesting decisions coming up in the next month of the Atlanta Falcons.
All right, let's get our final break in. When we come back, we'll take your phone calls, 256-576-4977.
You're listening to Talkin Ball on 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
We're wrapping things up in pretty good shape. Our last reported accident was Parkway Access Road, northbound near Governors. It should be moved out of the way pretty quick. You be careful on your trip in. A lot of folks in last-minute dash mode trying to get in on time this morning. Routine care to heart failure. Dr. Randall Burns and the team at Huntsville Heart Specialists have the expertise to care for all matters of the heart. Doctor visits are important. Please don't put them off. Captain Nick in the 72 and Jeff Popeye Skywatch Traffic Center.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Want to call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline? We have a new number for you. 888-256-576-4977.
Hold it.
That's 256-576-4977.
Well, what do you know?
We promise this number will be the one we keep. 97.7 ESPN, The Zone.
I'm attorney Gary Lackey. You know, you'll hear people say we're like a family, but here at the Lackey Law Firm, that's really true, not just a saying.
I'm Justin Lackey. With my father and my sister, we have a special connection to each other.
I'm Jennifer Lackey. At the Lackey Law Firm, when we take on your case, you become part of our family. You really do.
And we'll always do whatever it takes to get everything you deserve.
If you're injured, you worry about getting well, not about paperwork or insurance companies or figuring out how to get to your lawyer's office. I'll come to you.
We worry about your case so you don't have to.
When you've been injured, we know that your case is probably the biggest thing going on in your life, more important than almost anything else.
And it's important to us too, for one simple reason. Family takes care of each other, and the Lackey Law Firm will take care of you.
The Lackey Law Firm. The Lackey Law Family. 1-800-4-RIGHTS.
No representation is made that the quality of the legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers.
This segment of Talkin Ball is brought to you by University Kia, the #1 volume Kia dealer in the state of Alabama. Located online at universitykia.com. Want to save some money?
I can take money and I can make it into more money.
Just check out our zone deals online at 977ESPN.com. We are 977 ESPN The Zone. It's time for tomorrow's headline.
All right, guys, got about 9 minutes to the music. 9 minutes, Mike's on.
97.7 ESPN The Zone.
Oh, gotta love it, huh? Gotta love it. Just so you know, the NFL draft is done with in Cleveland. Last year, it was supposed to be in Las Vegas because of the pandemic. They had it in Roger Goodell's basement. Just so everybody knows, the 2022 NFL draft will be in Las Vegas April 28th through the 30th. They're announcing that just a short time ago. So get ready, Las Vegas. It's going to be out there at Las Vegas, and they'll probably do it like they did like they were hoping to do it this past time. But that is where this next NFL draft will be.
Yeah, it'll be with the land of John Gruden. They had the biggest curveball around one, but it was good for the state of Alabama. They took Alex Leatherwood to plug in along that offensive line to help Josh Jacobs continue his strong start of his career. Hopefully Henry Ruggs as well. But the Las Vegas Raiders are going to be a very interesting franchise to follow. And as you said, they will host the 2022 NFL draft. And so we will be interested to see, how that develops over the next calendar year. But certainly Cleveland did a great job. It was good to see some normalcy return. I think the NFL had a good 3 days. And I did think it was a little bit, it got a little crazy at times with all especially in rounds 1, 2, and 3, they were trying to get a lot of messages out and things of that nature. But I always enjoy seeing fans and/or special guests get a chance to announce a draft pick and be a part of the NFL draft. It's and I've being a part of one, just covering it. When we went to Nashville a couple of years ago, Scott, it's really an unbelievable 3 days. If you love football and you cover it, being able to take in an NFL draft, it's a unique experience. Just like when we went to Atlanta for the Super Bowl, that was unique a couple of years ago as well. So good job by Cleveland, and it'll be, I'm sure there's no telling what'll go on out in Vegas. It'll be their first NFL draft.
All right, and our good friend Ross Dellinger, who we had on the show last week, continuing to do some good for Sports Illustrated. Now he has another article out, and he said he was working on one. He says that 8 of the 11 college football playoff commissioners are in favor right now of an expansion to the college football playoffs. 8 of the 11 are in favor of expanding the college football playoffs. He said they're for expansion or open to it. He says in all, 10 of the 11 members of the College Football Playoff Management Committee who spoke to Sports Illustrated, some of them requesting anonymity, others speaking openly. He said they're offering more a clearer picture. He says at least 5 committee members say they are pro-expansion. For another 3 are open to the idea. Their reasons include diversifying what's recently been a field of the same teams, affording highly ranked mid-major programs an opportunity and giving a shot to more power programs. So the College Football Playoff Committee members,
they're tired of watching Alabama win, even though they're the best program and they've earned it. It's not like it was given to them. They're tired of Clemson. They're tired of Ohio State.
Yep.
But, I mean, I'm sorry. Guess what? If you expand it, they're still going to be in it. Okay? It's not like you're going to eliminate it. It just means more teams are going to get their ass embarrassed. That's all it means.
So we talked about that.
But at least they can say, oh, we were in the playoff, even though we lost 45-3. You know, congratulations. You got flattened. But it's not going to matter. I mean, what I think will be included, I think it'll be an 18 playoff, and you'll have automatic berths from all these Power 5 leagues, who will still stink, by the way, and they will still get mauled, but they will put them in there. They might even have a chance for a Power 5 or a non-Power 5, a group of 5 team to make it, like a Cincinnati. But, you know, I still don't like their chances of advancing, at least past. They might win one game, but they're not going to win a national championship. But it'll include more, and so it'll happen. It'll be a few years down the road, Scott, before I think it expands, and more than likely to 8. But then now you're going to have 9, 10, and 11, and 12 complaining as to why we're not in it. But again, I do think it will expand. I think that's inevitable.
Well, Bill Hancock in this article says, don't read too much into what you're hearing right now. 4 still could be the possibility, and they may not expand at all.
And I don't think they will until the end of this contract.
Right, which is 3 more years.
Yeah, so just everybody chill out. Tim Brando, all y'all take some blood pressure medicine. And it's just, you're just going to have to put up with Alabama and Ohio State and Clemson and some of these others, and continuing to be heavily in the playoff conversation.
In the article, it does say after the Alabama and Clemson championship game during the 2018 season, the group began to meet. Ross Dellinger says they held 2-day meetings multiple times throughout the year. They even met virtually during the pandemic. They poured over extensive models, formats, and stats. He says, for instance, one of the commissioners said, do you know what percentage of teams advance to their postseason championship event in an average NCAA sport? The answer is 18 to 25%. In football, that number is 3. So there's members on the committee that are trying and hoping and advocating to changing that number. And the reason for expansion would be to let more teams into the playoffs, because they are tired of seeing the same 4 teams get in and year out.
And I just some clarity on the timeline for Jamison Williams. We talked about that earlier in the show, potentially in the portal, choosing to transfer from Ohio State to Alabama. That may happen around noon today. I would just be they're close to social media around noon. We could see Jamison Williams make that decision public, but we'll see. We'll be monitoring that for you here on 97.7 Zone going forward.
All right, we'll talk more about this SI article tomorrow, because there is a lot to get into in this article. There's so much stuff that in the final 2 minutes of the show, we don't have enough to go over it, because there's so much information that Ross Dellinger put into this article.
Remember, he told us he was working on stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a 27-month secret is what he's entitling. I mean, basically it's coming down to saying that there was 27 months of meetings that the College Football Playoff Committee has gone through in regards to expansion. Some of these things in here just kind of blows your mind a little bit. But did you see the Kentucky Derby? Did you watch the Kentucky Derby?
No, but I'm sure Dan Woken did.
I watched it.
I didn't watch it.
There was almost 60,000 people there.
I'm glad of it.
And it was good, by the way.
I hope Dan enjoyed it.
I'm saying I watched it. It was good. Don't care about Dan Woken. I enjoyed it, because that's one of the things that I do want to go see is the Kentucky Derby. Maybe I can